This weekend is about you. It's an opportunity for you to retreat from your lives for just a few days, and for some of you, a little more, and to remove the constant stimulation in your external environment that reminds you of who you think you are as a personality. To separate yourself from the people you know, and the places you go, and the things that you do at the exact same time every single day, long enough for me to remind you of what you already know. And as you diminish the stimulation from your external environment, and you disconnect from your known reality, we are going to learn information. And every time you learn something new, as you know now, you make new connections in your brain. And if the Nobel Prize laureate Kandel in the year 2000 found that when people learn just one bit of information, they doubled the number of connections in their brain from 1,300 connections to 2,600 connections. Imagine if you learn a lot of information. There's going to be physical evidence in your brain as a result of your interaction with this environment. And we are going to take that knowledge, that information, that philosophy, those ideas, and we are going to apply them. You're going to personalize them. You're going to use them in some way and demonstrate it. And if you can get your behaviors to match your intentions, if you can get your actions equal to your thoughts, if you can get your mind and body working together, you're going to have a new experience. And that experience is going to enrich the circuits in your brain that you understood philosophically. And the moment those neurons string into place, your brain is going to make a chemical. And that chemical is called a feeling or an emotion. And now you're beginning to embody the truth of that philosophy. You are now signaling new genes in new ways to change your body. Are you with me still? And it means then that if you've done it once, you should be able to do it again. And if you can repeat that experience over and over again, you are going to begin to neurochemically condition your mind and body to begin to work as one. And if you do it enough times where your body now knows well as your mind, now it's beginning to become innate in you. It's becoming second nature. It's who you are. In fact, it's your state of being. And if someone asks you, why are you this way? Or how did you change in some way? You're going to say, I don't know, I practiced it so many times that I just became it. So our job then, this week, is to go from philosopher to initiate to master. From mind to body to soul. From knowledge to experience to wisdom, from thinking to doing to being, to learning it with your head, practicing it with your hands, and knowing it by heart. And you and I have all the biological and neurological machinery to do this. And I can stand up here tonight, and I can tell you that common people around the world are doing the uncommon, and they look just like you. And so this is a time in history where it's not enough to know. This is a time in history to know how. And we are going to combine a little quantum physics with a little neuroscience, with a little neuroendocrinology, a little psychoneuroimmunology, a little epigenetics, in a simple way. And all of that information, all of that science, the latest scientific models, point the finger at possibility. And so I also know that if you can get a group of people together with the same intent, and you can teach them that information in a scientific way where nothing is left to conjecture, nothing is left to dogma, Nothing is left to superstition. They will begin to understand what they're doing and why. And when you understand the what and the why, the how gets easier. So then, we are going to develop concepts and ideas. And I am going to watch you. And when I see you go like this, I know in that moment you're changing your brain waves from beta to alpha. And your brain is going into trance. And you're making an internal picture more real than your external world. And you're beginning to emboss that model into your brain neurologically. And when I see enough of you doing that, I'm going to ask you to turn to the person next to you and explain it. Because nerve cells that fire together, so then you have to repeat that information. Because that Nobel Prize laureate found out if people didn't review that information, if they didn't repeat it, if they didn't think about it, those circuits pruned apart within hours or days. So then, you are going to have to turn to the person next to you and fire and wire those circuits. And as you begin to describe that model that you're seeing in your brain and you're exchanging ideas, you're beginning to lay down the neurological hardware in your brain in preparation for the experience. Are you with me still? Yes. So then you continue to build the model, we continue to install the neurological circuitry, and I now know that if a person can explain that model, they're ready to experience it. And then you will be given the instruction on how to do it. And once you understand how to do it, then we are going to set up the conditions in this environment for you to begin to experience the truth of that philosophy. Are you with me still? Yes. And when you begin to experience the truth of it, and you begin to experience it neurologically and chemically, there should be some type of transformation within you and all around you. Are you with me still? Yes. That transformation then causes you to meet truth at a greater level. And then we will build on that model and that understanding. And then you will advance your understanding a little further through experience. And as you continue to experience more of the truth of it, you'll continue to meet truth on a higher level. And I want to have one of the most amazing progressive workshops we've ever had. How does that sound? And just like in a community of people that become infected by some condition and they develop some type of disease, I believe that health, wellness, and abundance is as infectious as disease. And we will raise the energy in this room. And I now know that when you get a group of people together and you teach them how to open their hearts, and you show them that this environment is safe to do it, that they don't have to contract and restrict and protect and anticipate, those are the laws of the jungle and survival. And that if you get people together and they begin to practice elevating their energy and elevating their emotions, we now know that it begins to produce a measurable magnetic field. You become more wave and less particle. You become more energy and less matter. And that energy is carrying information because it's a frequency. And if you begin to lay an intent on that energy, a thought, you begin to contribute to the energy of this room. And as your field begins to become coherent, and the person next to you field begins to become coherent, when those waves come together, they produce higher amplitudes. And the higher the amplitude, the higher the energy. And we have done 15 advanced workshops now. And the energy of the room always changes when people open their heart. And so, we will elevate your energy, elevate your emotions, and you will begin to contribute to the energy in this room. But I also want you to know that you have to make a choice when you come to this event if you are going to take from the quantum field or you're going to contribute to the field. Because the emotions of competition and anger and aggression and frustration and prejudice and hatred and suffering and guilt and shame and unworthiness, emotions of anxiety and fear and depression, all of those survival emotions draw from this invisible field of energy around your body and turn it into chemistry, and your field around your body begins to shrink. And now you are taking from that vital field. And if you keep doing that over and over again, and your field keeps on shrinking, now you are more particle and less wave, more matter and less energy. And the way you get what you want in your life is you have to fight for it. You have to force it. You have to control it. You have to predict it, manipulate it, because we're matter trying to change matter. And that's how people spend the majority of their lives. But this weekend, we are going to advance your understanding. And I am going to push you past where you normally stop. Because I also now know that on the other side of your fear is courage. I know that on the other side of your pain is freedom. I know that on the other side of your anger and hatred is love and compassion. It's the same energy, it's just trapped in your body. And when you free your body from the chains of those emotional addictions, you liberate energy. And when you begin to liberate energy, now you have available energy to heal. Now you have available energy to design a new destiny. Now you have available energy to heal another person or have a mystical experience because you're connected to that unified field. And living by those limited emotions creates separation. And those emotions of stress cause us to put all our attention on the outer world, to believe that the outer world is more real than the inner world. And those very chemicals heighten our senses, and we begin to become materialists. And all of our attention is on matter, is on the particle, is on people and objects and things and places, because there's danger out there. And you narrow your focus on matter. And when you put your attention on matter, and that's where your awareness is, then that's all that exists. And you disconnect from that quantum field. And so then you experience separation from everyone and everything the more you live by those hormones of stress. And the way people evolve in their life is through lack. They say, God, I don't have what that person has, and I feel empty because of it. So then they naturally begin to create a vision, a dream. It's normal. And as they begin to forecast what that possible reality can become, they begin to change who they are. The problem is, though, if they're matter trying to affect matter, then that takes a long time for them to get what they want, because they have to drag their body through space, back and forth, and experience time. And so, yeah, you get the house, but it's going to take you 30 years to pay it off. Yeah, you get the job, but you had to go through several interviews, a lot of applications, redo your resume, and you settle for a job that you may not even like. And if you want the right relationship and you go on Match.com and you check out all the body parts and you decide if it lines up with your body parts, you got to go on a lot of dates. And so it takes time for us to create what we want when we experience separation. So then, when it finally appears in your life, and the event produces an emotion, and that emotion fulfills the lack you were experiencing, Then all of a sudden you look for what's next, and that's called evolution. And it may be a slow process. But when you're connected to the quantum field, that unified field, you would have to agree, the more wholeness you feel, the more connected to that field you are, the less separation you have from the dreams that you are creating. Which means then you already feel like you have what you're dreaming about because you're so whole. Are you with me still? Yes. We have measured this now many, many times on people. And in fact, we're able to predict when it's going to happen. And all of a sudden, you see that brain starting to change. And when you're living by the hormones of stress and you're fractured because your attention is on different people and problems and things and circumstances in your life, and those cocktail of chemicals arouse the brain for you to scan your environment to make sure you can predict the next moment, that if people continuously do that for an extended period of time, they begin to create compartments in their brain that no longer synchronize or work well with each other. And if you were to measure that person's brainwave patterns, they're in high beta, and they're very incoherent brainwave patterns. And when your brain is incoherent, you're incoherent. When your brain isn't working right, you're not working right. But when that person gets beyond themselves, and you're going to understand exactly what that means this weekend, and they begin to disconnect from all the known things in their life that's been reaffirming their identity. The moment they begin to get out of the way, all of a sudden they're no longer thinking and analyzing, and they surrender. And the moment that happens, they connect to that unified field, and all of a sudden they start to experience unity or wholeness in their biology. And all of a sudden, those different circuits that were once out of order, they begin to synchronize. And what syncs in the brain links in the brain. And all of a sudden, the brain is working in a more holistic state. The front of the brain is talking to the back of the brain. The right side of the brain is talking to the left side of the brain. And the moment those two hemispheres come together, the union of polarity, the union of duality, the union of opposites or separation is called wholeness or love. And that person, the moment that happens, that heart begins to open up. Because when you are living by those same survival emotions and you're impatient and you're resentful and you're frustrated, those very emotions cause your heart to also beat very incoherently. But the moment you connect to that unified field and you start experiencing a greater level of energy moving through your nervous system, it will be translated as an elevated emotion. And your heart will break open. And we've seen this on people. The moment the brain becomes coherent, boom, all of a sudden the heart goes into super coherence. And the researchers that have looked at some of our students, watching their heart at that level of coherence, have said, these are supernatural readings. And I say to them all the time, I keep telling you, our students are supernatural. Not just for 5 minutes, not just for 8 minutes, but for an entire hour. That person is so in love with the moment, they don't want it to end. They are immersed in that experience. They are connected to the unified field. They are so whole. They feel so satisfied. They feel so in love with life that it's impossible to want. How can you want when you feel whole? When you're whole, there is no lack, and you feel like you already have it. And that's the moment the magic starts to happen in a person's life. And the more wholeness you feel, the less separation you have from people and things in your life, which means you're more connected to a dream, to a future. And it should happen in a shorter amount of time because you're experiencing less separation. And separation is time. Because the more separate you are from the unified field, the more you feel like matter. You have to move your body through space to get what you want, and it's always going to take an enormous amount of time. But what if you learn this weekend how to get beyond yourself? To forget about your name, your past, your skin color, your culture, to forget about your social security number, your problems, your disease, your kids, your husband, your wife, your pets, to get beyond all of those things, your schedules, and begin to surrender into that unified field. And you are going to learn this weekend how to find the sweet spot of the generous present moment. And you're going to have to labor for it. And you're going to have to work for it. And I'm going to push you a little further than where you normally go, because that's the unknown. And when you get outside of your comfort zone and the known and you step into the unknown, the magic always happens there. Are you with me still? Yes. So here's my first question. Is it worth the effort? Yes. Here's my second question. Are you in or are you out? Yes. Okay, so now, I talk a lot about getting beyond yourself. And people nod their head, and they think they understand. But I'm telling you, after looking at over 8,000 brain scans, you are at your absolute best when you forget about yourself. Period. Period. And that generous present moment is your access to possibility. And so then, if you think 60 to 70,000 thoughts in one day, and 90% of those thoughts are the same thoughts as the day before, and you believe that your thoughts create your reality, help me out here. Would you agree then your life is going to stay the same? Yes. Because the same thought is going to lead to the same choice. The same choice is going to lead to the same behavior. The same behavior is going to create the same experience. And the same experience is going to produce the same emotion. And that same emotion is going to drive your very same thoughts. And your biology, your neurocircuitry, your neurochemistry, your hormones, and even your genetic expression are equal to how you think, how you act, and how you feel. And how you think, how you act, and how you feel is called your personality. And your personality creates your personal reality. That's it. So then the present personality who's sitting here today, called you, has created the present personal reality called your life. Yes or no? Yes. So I'm stepping out here. So then it would also mean that if you wanted to create a new personal reality, you would have to change your personality. Yes or no? Yes. Which means then you're going to have to start thinking about what you've been thinking about and change it. Yes? You're going to have to become aware of your unconscious behaviors and habits and modify them. Yes or no? Yes. And then you're going to have to look at those emotions that keep you anchored to the past and decide, do these emotions belong in my future? You see, most people try to create a new personal reality as the same personality, and it doesn't work. You're literally going to have to become someone else. Are you with me still? Yes. So then, reason this with me. If you keep thinking the same thoughts, if you keep making the same choices, if you keep demonstrating the same behaviors that create the same experiences, that stamp the same networks of neurons into the same patterns, all for the familiar feeling called you, to reaffirm an identity. If you keep firing and wiring and firing and wiring and firing and wiring and creating the same chemistry over and over again, would you agree you begin to hardwire your brain into a very finite signature? Yes. And that hardwired signature becomes your identity, the box in your brain. Are you with me still? And if all of those experiences are producing the same emotions, the same familiar emotions, and feelings and emotions are a record of past experiences, then you're conditioning your body into the past. Come on, are you with me? Yes. Which means then you'll be predictable in your life. And if you keep doing that over and over again, over and over again, over and over again, over and over again, you're going to be on autopilot. And 95% of who you are by the time you're 35 years old is a set of memorized behaviors, unconscious choices, emotional reactions, beliefs, perceptions, and attitudes that function just like a computer program. You press the button and it starts. So then people try to change with the 5% of their conscious mind, but their body is already programmed into a predictable future based on what they did in the past. And in fact, you can take that person's past and lift it up and set it on their future. And that's karma. That's it. That's karma. You experience karma every day, but there's no unseen hand doing it to you. Your free will has been lost in a program. And I know that the only time people change is when their will is greater than the program. I also know that nobody ever changes until they change their energy. They'll never make the choice. And I also know that the hardest part about change is not making the same choice as you did the day before. Are you with me still? Yes. So then, if you keep waking up in the morning, and what does everybody do the first thing they do when they wake up in the morning? Come on, you all do it. You reach for your cell phone. Maria's eating carbohydrates again. Oh my God. Let me check my Facebook. Oh my God. Wow, look at that amazing breakfast. Oh, let's check the news. Oh, did you see what happened on the news? Okay, let me check my email. Okay, let me check my Twitter. Okay, let me link in here. And now I'm feeling like myself. I'm connected again. And then here we go. You have the thought of the toilet, and there you are right in front of the toilet. When you're on the toilet, you have the thought of the coffee maker, and there you are, right in front of the coffee maker. Then you have the thought of the shower, and then you're in the bathroom. Then you have the thought of getting dressed, and there you are, dressed. Then you have the thought of the second cup of coffee, and you're drinking it. You have the thought of your car, you're in your car. Your body is always following your mind, but it's following it to the known. And so then, where you place your attention is where you place your energy. And if you keep investing your attention into those same emotions, you're investing your energy into the past. And if you wake up in the morning and every single day you're going through a routine memorized behavior, and you're placing your attention on different people and different things in different places in your known familiar reality, you're investing your energy into a predictable future based on what you did in the past, and your body's always going to follow your mind to the known. And in fact, if the unknown happened in your life, it would be really inconvenient. Like, can you come back tomorrow so we can plan for this? Because people are so fixed in routine that the unknown would break their predictable world. And I also know then, in order for you to find the present moment, you're going to have to be greater than your body. And your body has been conditioned to be the mind. That's what a habit is. And it wants to get up and do things, and it's busy, and it's got people to see and places to go. And you're going to say, come here. You're sitting here. Stay. You stay. And then as it's sitting there and it's not doing anything and experiencing anything, reaffirming the familiar emotions, the body goes, watch this. I'm going to send a really nasty thought to the brain. so she can feel a little anger and judgment, so I can get fed the very emotions I'm addicted to. And you become conscious of that thought. And like Gandalf on the bridge, you say, "You may not pass." And then all of a sudden, you begin to become aware that your attention is on a familiar emotion. And when you put your attention on the emotion you're in the past, you stop and you return back to the present moment. And then the body says, "I wonder what time we're going to break for lunch. I feel a little hungry. Oh, Dr. Joe's probably laying down on the stage. I know he's probably doing that." And then you say, "No, I'm not doing that. I'm getting beyond myself." And you return back to the present moment. Every time you do that, you are reconditioning your body to a new mind, and you're telling it it's no longer the mind, that you are the mind. And if you keep taming that animal, and you keep bringing it into the present moment, sooner or later, it's going to surrender. And when it does, you are going to liberate energy. And you are going to break the bonds emotionally and energetically with everyone and everything in your past, present reality. And that available energy now is coming back to you to design a new destiny. Are you with me still? Yes. And so here's my question. Is it worth it to find the present moment? Yes. So then, we will work on finding the present moment. And again, you are going to have to become conscious of your unconscious thoughts. You're going to have to observe your automatic propensities and habits and behaviors. And you're going to have to begin to become familiar with those emotions that are trying to undermine your very, very future. And so then, we have to cross a river. Because if you're living by the same emotions every single day, and feelings and emotions are the end product of past experiences, doesn't that mean nothing new is happening in your world? Come on. Yes. Come on. Yes. I'm coming down there. And if feelings and emotions are the end product of past experiences, and those familiar emotions are driving your thoughts, and you can't think greater than how you feel, or feelings have become the means of thinking, you're thinking in the past. And if you believe that your thoughts have anything to do with your destiny, you keep creating the same familiar life. Are you with me still? Yes. So then, if you can predict the feeling of anything that can occur in your life, if you can predict the feeling, then it's a known. And by the time we're 35 years old, we can predict the feeling of every experience. And now there's no room for possibility in our life. And those emotions drive our very thoughts, and we keep firing and wiring the same circuits in the brain, and those circuits produce the same chemicals, and we begin to feel exactly the way we were just thinking. And the moment we feel those emotions, they drive more thoughts. And over again, hardwiring your brain to the past and emotionally conditioning your body to the past. And if thoughts are the language of the brain, and feelings are the language of the body, and how you think and how you feel creates a state of being, then your entire state of being is in the past. And your body, as the unconscious mind, does not know the difference between an experience in your life that creates an emotion and an emotion you can create by thought alone. To your body, it's exactly the same. And it's believing that it's living in the same past experience 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. The body is in the past. And if you condition your body to be the mind of that emotion, then the body literally is in the past. And you can't create a new future holding on to the emotions of the past. Are you with me still? Yes. So then we have to cross a river. And if 95% of who we are is an unconscious program, then the moment you start to become conscious of those unconscious states of mind and body, you would have to agree with me then, the moment you're observing those thoughts, those propensities, those behaviors, those emotions, it means you are now no longer the program. You are the consciousness observing that program, and you're beginning to objectify the subjective self. You're pulling consciousness out of the program. Are you with me still? So then we have to cross a river. And we have to go from the old self to the new self. And as I said, the hardest part about change is not making that same choice. And so the moment you say, okay, I'm not going to complain today, I'm not going to be a victim, I'm not going to judge, I'm not going to feel sorry for myself, I'm not going to make excuses, no self-pity, I'm just going to stop all of that. You know, the moment you say that, you're going to get uncomfortable. Because the moment you say that, you're stepping into the unknown. The moment you begin to no longer make the same choice as you normally make, you just stepped into that river of change. And get ready, it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be unfamiliar. There is going to be some uncertainty, and there's going to be some unpredictability. And the moment you step into that river and you're no longer feeling those same emotions, your body is in the unknown, and it's afraid. It wants to return back to the familiar, what it can predict. And so it starts sending signals back to the brain, and it's trying to unseat you. And it's saying to you, start tomorrow. Better day to start tomorrow. I broke a fingernail. The day is ruined. You're too much like your mother. You'll never change. You're a loser. This doesn't feel right. And if you respond to that thought as if it's true, and it slips right by your analytical mind, your thinking brain, you begin to program your autonomic nervous system into that same state of being, because that thought is going to lead to the same choice, which is going to lead to the same behavior, which is going to create the same experience, which is going to produce the same emotion, and then people say, this feels right. No, it feels familiar. That going from the old self to the new self is the neurological, the biological, the chemical, the hormonal, the genetic death of the old self. And people say to me, well, Dr. Joe, I'm in the unknown, I'm in the void. This void, I can't predict my future. And I always say the same thing to them. The best way to predict your future is to create it. That means then, what thoughts do you want to fire and wire in your brain? What behaviors do you want to demonstrate in one day, in one lifetime? And if you can begin to rehearse your behaviors and disconnect from your outer world, if you are truly present, the brain does not know the difference between what's going on out there and what's going on in here. And your inner world begins to map your brain neurologically to look like the event has already occurred. Now your brain just moved from a record of the past to a map to the future. And now you are priming your brain for that action, that behavior, that choice. Your brain is already in the event. And if you're truly a passionate person, you would say, I'm not going to get up from this meditation until I feel unlimited. I'm not going to move from this seat until I'm in love with life. You may be so uncompromising that you would say, I am not getting up until I feel worthy to receive abundance. Now we're talking about greatness. Because if you do that properly, and you get up in an elevated emotional state, and you can maintain that modified state of mind and body your entire day, you better get ready. Because something unusual is going to happen in your world. That's the law. And it will come in a way that you have never expected, that you never could predict. Why? Because if you can expect it and predict it, it's the known. It has to come in a way that surprises you, that rocks your world, that catches you off guard and leaves no doubt that what you did inside of you produced some effect outside of you. And when you begin to correlate the changes you made inside of you with the effect you produced outside of you, you're going to pay attention to what you did, and you're going to do it again. And there isn't a person in this room that is so special to be excluded from that phenomenon. And I'm telling you, when that unexpected event lands in your life, the energy and the excitement and the awe you're feeling to be blessed by that moment is going to inspire you to create again. And we will move from victims to victors. We will move from suffering to creating. And so then, people are doing it around the world. And I can stand on the stage till midnight and tell you story after story of people that are actually doing it and look just like you. And yes, it's difficult. It's going to take an effort for you. I know that. I work on it every day of my life. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. But when you finally break through, you'll realize that the only thing that was standing in the way between you and your dreams was you. Are you with me still? Yes. So you know what that means, Tampa? That means then you can't wait for your wealth to show up to feel abundance or worth. You can't wait for your healing to feel wholeness. You can't wait for your new relationship to feel love. You can't wait for your success in order to feel empowered. You can't wait for the mystical moment to occur so finally you can be in awe of life. That's the old model of reality of cause and effect, waiting for something outside of us to give us relief from the lack and the separation we feel inside of us. And the moment we feel better inside of us, we pay attention to whoever or whatever caused it. And that event in and of itself is called a memory. That's Newtonian physics, cause and effect. But the quantum model of reality is about causing an effect. That means that the moment you start feeling worthy and abundant, your wealth is coming. It means then, the moment you start feeling whole, you begin to heal. The moment you feel empowered, you're moving towards success. The moment you're in love with yourself and in love with life, you will magnetize an equal. And the moment you are in awe of life is the moment the mystical blesses you, and that's causing an effect. And I swear to you, the moment it happens, and I interview enough people now, and it happens at every advanced workshop, and I interview them and I talk to them, they will tell you that the moment they connected or the moment they had their dreams come in a way that they would never anticipate or never expect, the moment they felt worthy to receive and it happened, they look back at their entire life and they don't want to change anything in their past because they know it brought them to the present moment. And that's the moment the past no longer exists for you. Are you with me still? So then what about the soul? The soul is interested in adventure, you know? We came from singularity, we came from source energy, we came from oneness, and you know, God was so busy being everything, it was unaware of anything. So then it was so unaware of itself, it finally became aware of itself. When it became aware of itself, it created separation. And all of a sudden, it began to slow down all the way into density. And we have all gone on the journey. And we stopped at this level because there's tiramisu. We don't have to go any further. But sooner or later, we play the game called life. And when it starts getting predictable, then we want something else. And everybody in this audience knows what I'm talking about. You start asking the bigger questions. Who am I? What is life? What am I doing here? What's my purpose? What happens when we die? What's the soul? Those are important questions to ask. And that's the soul giving you a little nudge and saying, hey, look, I'm interested in adventure. I'm down here in density. I got survival down really good. I've suffered. I've had relationships. I've had money. I've had loss. I've had betrayal. All right, let's go somewhere else, okay? I felt pain. I felt joy. I felt all these things. Is there more now? And all of a sudden, a person starts no longer being seduced by their environment. They're less interested in social engagements. They don't watch television any longer. They don't want to small talk. They're over it. They're outgrowing something. And the soul is saying, let's go on an adventure. How many experiences can we have between here back to singularity? How many potentials exist in the quantum field? Infinite. Poke the person next to you, please. So there's infinite potentials in the quantum field, yes? Yes. So if there's infinite potentials in the quantum field, there's infinite experiences for you to have, yes or no? Yes. So healing a disease should be something to prove to yourself that the power lives within you, yes? Yes. And if you heal yourself, you may want to heal your Aunt Mary. And if you heal your Aunt Mary, you may want to heal someone on the other side of the planet because you understand consciousness is non-local. Are those experiences? And then you should be able to create something out of nothing if you get pretty good, yeah? Is that a potential? So there's infinite potentials for you to experience that other than soap operas and television commercials and I don't know what else, sports. There's more, yeah? So then, the soul then is the observer within you. It's recording your whole entire life. And it's the camera. So, imagine the soul watching you get up. Oh, here we go. What's up? Okay, text. Okay, Facebook. Okay, Twitter. Okay, email. Okay, news. Okay, TV. Okay, pee-pee. Okay, toilet. Okay, shower. Okay, food. Okay, gossip. And the soul pretty much is watching you do this every day. Would you agree the soul's watching reruns? And what happens if you watch the same episode of Friends every single day of your life? Would you agree then after maybe 10 years, you would be disinterested and fall asleep? You'd fall asleep on the couch, right? Come on, yes? Yes. That's just what the soul does. The soul goes to sleep and says, wake me up when something new happens. And so then the soul goes to sleep and the ego takes over. Are you with me still? Yes. So then, guess what? The soul says, all right, can't go on doing this forever. Sooner or later, something's got to break down. And then the person experiences crisis, loss, betrayal, disease, diagnosis, pain. They experience a trauma, and all of a sudden, they no longer feel like themselves. And the moment they no longer feel like themselves, they can see themselves for the first time. Are you with me still? Yes. And all of a sudden, they become conscious of how they've been thinking. And they begin to observe how they've been acting. And then they look at the emotions they're enslaving their body to every day. And all of a sudden, they become aware of the old self. And I'm telling you that if you stop creating, it just means you're more in love with your past than you are in love with the future. If you stop being the creator of your life, it just means you are trading the thought of that your thoughts create your reality for some emotional addiction. And you'll settle back into mediocrity. And you'll find people in your life that are doing the exact same. And you will use each other to reaffirm your addiction to victimization and suffering. And you'll get all the agreement you need. And you are right, by the way. But people need that crisis, that trauma, that disease, that shock, that loss, that betrayal, because then they can see themselves for the first time. And the soul says, I don't care what it takes. Let's just shake this loose a little bit. Are you with me still? Yes. And so then, as you overcome those emotions that keep you connected to the past, and the emotion is a record of the past, then the soul wakes up and is ready to create a new future with you. Are you with me still? Yes. Because you're no longer viewing the future through the lens of the past. Are you with me still? Yes. And so then the soul wakes up, and the person all of a sudden is trusting themselves. They're ready to face adversity. Do you know what? You know how many people in this work that I have interviewed that were diagnosed with a disease because of some trauma or shock that happened to them 20 years ago, and I asked them the tough questions? Do you know how many of those people reversed that disease when they overcame their emotion, and it took them 2 years or longer, but they never missed a day because they believed in their future more than they believed in their past. And their will was greater than their program. And yep, there were days that they were afraid. Guess what? They did their meditation anyway. And there were days they had a lot of doubt. But guess what? They did their meditation anyway. And there were days they felt so bad and felt so sick that they didn't think they could do their meditation, but guess what? They did it anyway. And a lot of those people said, I'm not getting up from this meditation until I'm in love with life. And you know what? Many of them had no reason to be in love with life. And to the materialist, they're right. But to the quantum mind, they're investing their attention and their energy into possibility, into a new future. And they turned that disease around. I've talked to them. And they're in love with themselves. And they're in love with life. And they have said to me, square in the face, looking me right in the eye over a glass of wine, you know what, Dr. Joe? I'm ready for the next experience. I want the next initiation. I want to be challenged again. They don't see their betrayer as a betrayer any longer. They see it as a teacher because they grew from the experience. And there's no schools of ancient wisdom that you need to go to be initiated. Your life is your initiation. And when we meet our life as creators instead of victims, it means then we can begin to exert effects in our life. Are you with me still? Yes. So then, those people have overcome themselves. And some of them, I talked to a woman who had a very, very abusive past in a very limited experience. And beautiful lady, and suffered a lot because of her past. And she broke through. She freed herself and freed her body. And I had dinner with her. And you know, the mystical, the magical, the transcendent is happening to her all the time now. It's like she doesn't even have to try to create anything because the soul is awakened. And when we overcome those emotions, the soul now belongs to the future instead of to the past. Are you with me still? Yes. So then, those emotions then that keep us anchored to the past are stopping us. They stand in the way for us in realizing the future. But then, you would have to also agree with me that All of you already know how to do this. Every one of you have done something great in your life. I don't care what it is. I don't care who you are. You did something great in your life. And you know what you did? You got this wild idea out of nowhere. All of a sudden, you got this vision. And the moment you saw that vision in your mind, you were connecting to a new potential in the quantum field, yes or no? Yes. And as you asked the question, what would it be like to be this, or what would it be like to be that, or to have that, your frontal lobe turned on. The crowning achievement of the human being, 40% of your entire brain lights up. Like a great symphony leader, it begins to look out over the landscape of the entire brain and begin to randomly select different networks of neurons that are connected to knowledge or experience that's wired in your brain. And it seamlessly pieces them together in a new way. And when that occurs, you get a picture in your mind, and we call that intent. You're selecting a new possibility. That's how creative you are. And for the passionate person, that thought becomes the experience in their mind. And the end product of that experience is an emotion. And in the moment they begin to experience the emotion ahead of the actual event, they're giving their body a sampling of the future, a taste of the future. And now they're combining a clear intention with an elevated emotion, and their brain and body are moving from living in the past to living in the future, and you've done this. And no person, no thing, no circumstance, no problem would ever stand in the way between you and that vision. Are you with me still? Yes. And you became possessed by it. And you did something really beautiful. You started to write down the choices you needed to make. You began to review the behaviors you had to demonstrate. And you reviewed them over and over again in your mind, rehearsed them. You began to think about the experiences and the goals that you wanted to achieve in a few days, in a week, in a month. And you began to every single day become excited and inspired. And you kept your energy up. And then you did something really beautiful. You wrote down the thoughts you weren't going to think. You became conscious of, I can't, it's too hard, I'll never change, start tomorrow. They would never slip by your awareness and signal your autonomic nervous system into that destiny. You were the lawgiver. You were the queen, the king on the throne. And you became conscious of the choices you had to stop making. So conscious of them that you wouldn't go unconscious in that day. You had to become aware of those habits and those automatic behaviors, what came out of your mouth, how you acted, and you became so conscious of it you wouldn't go unconscious again. And you knew what experiences you needed to stay away from. And you knew that the moment you went down to a lower denominator, a lower emotion, you were back in your past and you couldn't see a future because you were viewing it through the lens of the past. You knew that. And you were conscious every moment. And in the beginning, it took work. It did. That's because you were stepping out of the program as consciousness. And you have to be conscious in order to do that. And every day, you reviewed who you wanted to be. And every day, you reviewed who you no longer wanted to be. And guess what happened? When you started becoming more elevated in your emotions, you could see the old self just like when we were in a lower emotional state and viewed ourselves. Now we're in an elevated emotional state and we can still view the old self. Are you with me still? Yes. And every day, you kept reminding yourself. And all of a sudden, you reached a point in your life where the signals were starting to come. Feedback was starting to happen in your world, and you took your foot off the gas. You started to coast, and you knew it was going to come. You didn't know how it was going to happen or when it was going to happen, but you didn't care. You knew it was going to happen. And all of a sudden, it came to you. And when it did, you fell more in love with yourself. And you were more patient and more kind, less judgmental, more in the moment and more understanding, you began to embody more of the divine. You became more whole. Now think of a time in your life when you said you were going to do something and it didn't go so well. You know, you had a vision, you had an idea. You had a possibility that you linked into, and then you got excited about it, but you got tired the next day. You didn't feel like it. You were sleepy. You had a headache. You had a bad day at work. Oh, you had to go to some social engagement like someone had a rifle to your head. You had to go. And you chose the familiar. And that dream just disappeared. Are you with me still? Oh, yeah. But when you're in that elevated state, you can look at the old self as easy as when you were in that limited emotional state. So which would you prefer? Would you choose the elevated state? Because you can learn and change in a state of pain and suffering, and you can learn and change in a state of joy and inspiration. Which would you like to do? And by the way, when that event finally shows up in your life and it comes in a way that you least expect, the brain learns by mistakes and surprises. What would you like a few of? Have you had enough mistakes? So then you will find the generous present moment. And I want you to know when you're there and when you're not. Because when you return back into your life, I want you applying these things to your life. And if you can find the present moment and connect to that unified field, and if thoughts are the electrical charge in the quantum field and feelings are the magnetic charge in the quantum field, and how you think and how you feel broadcasts an electromagnetic signature that influences every single atom in your life. If the thought sends the signal out and the feeling draws the event back to you, then you should be able to change your energy and tune into a potential electromagnetically that already exists in the quantum field. And you're going to learn how to do that. And when there's a vibrational match between your energy and that potential in the quantum field that exists as a potential electromagnetically, you will have to go nowhere to get it. Because now you are the magnet and you are the vortex and you are drawing your future to you and you are collapsing time and the event space is moving towards you. And it would appear out of nowhere because you created it from nowhere. That something will happen out of nothing because you were in the place of nothing. And it should happen in no time because you created it from no time. Which means when you get beyond yourself, you become nobody. No one, no thing, no where, in no time. You become pure consciousness. And when you begin to become comfortable and lingering in the unknown as an awareness, consciousness, and disconnecting from your environment, getting beyond your body and transcending linear time, that's the moment you are in the realm of possibilities. And you can't enter through that door as a somebody. You can't enter even with your body. You have to enter as pure consciousness. Are you with me still? Yes. So then we are going to tune into a potential that already exists in the quantum field. And I'm going to give you the science and the understanding behind it. And I'm going to tell you story after story after story of people who have done it. And those people who healed themselves of diseases, when they stand up on the stage and they tell their story, and people are moved to tears, I watch, listening what it took to be so humble to heal. Many of those people you wouldn't even recognize in a group, but to me, they're my heroes. I'd rather have dinner with them than any academic, any scholar, any famous person, because they're embodying the truth. I want to know what they know. That those people, they are my heroes. And when they stand on the stage and they tell their story, and I watch the audience get moved, I know that the moment they identify with that person and they say, boy, she doesn't look much differently than me. Wow, she's a little overweight. Oh my God, she's in her 60s. Whoa. She's not wearing all white. She's not a vegetarian. She cussed twice. Whoa, that's... She's going to realize she's just a normal person and made her way. That I now know that if you watch someone dance the salsa like me really well, you'll dance the salsa better. If you see someone hit a tennis ball like Serena Williams and you play tennis, you'll hit a tennis ball better. If you see someone lead with love and compassion and courage in their life, you will lead with love and compassion and courage in your life. And you see a student come on the stage and tell their story about how they overcame themselves, you're more prone to accept, believe, and surrender that it's possible for you. And in the last 4 years, we have measured the changes in our students. And the only reason I wanted to measure the changes because they were happening right in our event, right in real time, right in front of us. People healing right in front of us. They were transforming in real time. And so we assembled a team of neuroscientists and researchers. We assembled a whole bunch of people to begin to measure those changes, and we've done an enormous amount of work. And I want to show you some of that research because I want to show you how powerful you really are. And we just made history last week in Italy. And I had to run back to the back of the room and tell those scientists to shut up because they'd never seen anything like this. And we have a new team of scientists, and I was trying to get to them the whole entire week to show them what to expect, but they were busy with people, and I was busy and coming and going. We just kept missing each other. And finally I said, all right, let them have the experience for themselves. And all of a sudden, they started seeing some of the most amazing changes in people's brains. I want to show you what it means to connect to that unified field. I want to show you what it means to have a mystical experience. A full-on sensory experience without your senses. That whatever's going on between your ears is more real than anything that's ever happened in your life. I want to show you what it looks like when you're in a state of love. I want to show you, if we're blessing the energy centers of the body, how and what it looks like when you begin to create more order in there. We measured it. We've measured the energy of the room. We've measured the energy around people's bodies. We've measured the energy centers of their bodies. We've measured all kinds of neurotransmitters. And just recently, we did a study where we took 120 people. And I said, okay, when you're experiencing anger and aggression and frustration and you're in survival, your cortisol levels go up, stress hormone. If cortisol levels go up, your immune system goes down. If you're perceiving a threat in your external world and you're mobilizing all of this energy for some threat in your external world and turning it into chemistry, you have no energy in your inner world for growth and repair. In fact, the vital field that's giving life to your body is shrunk, and so there's no energy to draw from. And the immune system becomes compromised. And so I thought, okay, there's a chemical called immunoglobulin A, IgA. And IgA goes down when cortisol levels go up. So I said, what if we took 120 people and we had them create elevated emotions? Like gratitude and inspiration and love for life and the joy for existence and care and kindness. And what if they were elevating their emotions and elevating their energy? Is it possible then that cortisol levels should go down and IgA levels should go up? Are you with me still? Yes. Poke the person next to you, please. So lo and behold, these weren't Buddhist monks. They weren't nuns. They weren't academics. They weren't long-time meditators for 40 years. They were common people just like you. And their cortisol levels all went down several deviations. And the people who had no cortisol or limited cortisol because their adrenals were so shot, their cortisol levels went up. And the researcher just called us and told us, we're like, we actually never thought of that. So the people who had a suppressed cortisol level because they were so stressed, their cortisol levels went back to healthy values. The people with cortisol levels that were high returned back to healthy values. So they're moving towards homeostasis. You with me still? Yes. Their IgA levels went from about 55 or 54 all the way to 87. And 87 is the high level. They were epigenetically signaling new genes in new ways. You with me still? We measured their brains before they started that process. We measured their brains after they started that process. There was a 60% increase in their ability to change their brain from high beta brainwave patterns to sustained alpha and theta. The research isn't even that good out there in the world. Their level of sustaining delta improved 5.5 times. They were deep in meditation. And they were doing it because they were in the operating system of the autonomic nervous system. And when you begin to connect to that autonomic nervous system and you slow your brain waves down and you're conscious in that subconscious system, you can just plant a seed in possibility. And we are going to learn how to bless the energy centers of your body, and you're going to understand the science, the quantum physics, the neurobiology, the neurochemistry. You're going to understand that the hormones, each one of these are individual brains. And just like you place your attention in the space, in the center of your head, in space, and become aware of the space beyond your head, in space. Don't you know that that was all training? Don't you know that I knew that it was tedious? We got thousands and thousands of emails. I hate Dr. Joe. But don't you know it was training? Because you're developing what's called a convergent focus and a divergent focus, matter, energy, particle, wave. And it was all training, because when you open your focus and you create coherence in this brain, and we've measured it thousands of times, if you rest your attention in each one of these energy centers and become aware of the space around them, you should create coherence in every one of these individual brains. And that sends a coherent message to all the cells and tissues and the organs in the body. And we've had people heal themselves of impotence, bladder cancer, diverticulitis, food allergies, throat cancer, brain tumors, just by blessing their energy centers. And you're going to learn how to do that. And all the work that you've been doing and resting your attention in different parts of your body and space around is all going to make sense. And you never have to do that again. Don't you know that when I talked to the scientist and I said, how did those people change those energy centers? How did they do it? He said, they can't do it with their conscious mind. They had to be in the autonomic nervous system. And when you change your brain waves from beta to alpha, you're walking right into that autonomic nervous system. And if I taught that and people didn't know how to change their brain waves, they would be locked out. But when they surrender and they slow their brain waves down, now they know how to program it. And if they can't rest their attention in different parts of their body and the space around the body, then they would get very little effects or results if they weren't that focused. You'll learn by the end of this event how to bless those energy centers, and you only have to spend a few minutes on them, and we are going to climb Jacob's ladder. And each one of those centers has information, has energy, has their own hormones, their own chemistry, own individual brains. And consciousness or energy moving through neurological tissue creates mind. And each one of these centers has their own mind. And you're going to learn how to create coherence in all of them. And they are going to draw from an invisible field of coherent energy. And if all disease is a lowering of frequency and an incoherent message, you're going to raise the frequency by raising the frequency of each one of these centers. How does that sound? So I'm going to show you the research to prove to you how powerful you really are. And that I have very little interest in keynote presentations and conferences. To me, it's dinner conversation. I'm bored. I want to be with people that want to do it. I'm a doer. I want to be with doers. Let's prove to yourself how powerful you really are. Let's interact with that field. And so then you'll see the research, because we've made scientific history over and over and over and over again. And the beauty behind it is it's all races, it's all cultures, it's all sexual preferences, it's all diets, and it's everything. Everything. Everybody's included. Nobody's excluded. And so I want you to experience it. And then, if 95% of who you are is the body programmed as the mind, and you've been thinking the same thoughts that make the same chemicals for you to feel the same way, and you're storing all that thought as energy in these first three centers, and the body is the mind, there's got to be a way to pull the mind out of the body and liberate energy. And you're going to learn how to do that. And you're going to understand the science and the physiology behind it in detail. And when you begin to understand what you're doing and why, we're going to put you in that experience. But you're going to have to go after it with a level of intensity that's greater than your addiction to guilt. You're going to have to be greater than your anger and frustration. And you can't let your body be your mind. You're going to have to use your body as an instrument of consciousness to ascend your energy. And you are waking up a sleeping dragon. And I'm telling you, everybody tells me they want the unknown. But when this moving freight train begins to move, all the energy you use for intercourse, all the energy you use to digest a meal, all of the energy you use to judge your coworker and control your life, instead of it being released out, it's going to release up. And when it does, you are going to free yourself from the past. Because if that emotion is stored in the body, and the body is in the past, the moment you take this emotion and turn it into energy, you're freeing your body from the past. And that energy is going to go right into your brain, and it's going to open a gate at your brain stem, and all of a sudden your brain chemistry is going to change. And you are going to connect to that unified field, that loving intelligence, and that intelligent love, and you're going to get baptized in light. Are you with me still? Yes. But listen, this is not a passive thing that we do. We go after it because you have to use a level of intensity that's greater than the body as the mind. You have to be the alchemist, limited emotions into elevated emotions, base metals into gold. And you have to work with it. And you are working it and working it and working it, and when it finally releases, it's going to produce a very strong magnetic field around your body, and we'll show you the science behind that. But now here's the beauty. The moment you pull the mind out of the body and liberate it from the past, it's time to recondition the body to a new mind. And I'm going to say to you, come on, what is courage? Can you teach your body emotionally what it feels like to be fearless? What does that feel like? And the hair on the back of your neck better stand up. And the moment you're doing that, you are literally signaling new genes in new ways. Up-regulating genes for health and down-regulating genes for disease. Just like how IgA levels went up and cortisol levels went down. Those are genes that do that. Are you with me still? Yes. And I'm going to say to you, come on. What is the mystical? Can you teach your body emotionally what it feels like to be in awe of life? What would that feel like? And you're going to have to get passionate. And if you do it properly, you'll have the energy to do it. Are you with me still? And we are going to emotionally rehearse emotion after emotion until your body begins to change its energy. And I swear to you, you're not going to get up as the same person who sat down. And you're going to do it without a football game, without a shopping spree, without a drug, because your nervous system is the greatest drug that was ever created. Are you with me still? Yes. So you'll learn how to do that. And then we are going to work on changing a belief and a perception. And you're going to understand the anatomy of belief. And all beliefs are created from past experiences. And when you have an experience in your life that brands you emotionally, the higher the emotional quotient, the more altered you feel from that experience. The moment you feel changes in your internal chemistry, you pay attention to what causes it, and the brain takes a snapshot, a picture, a memory. And that memory is embossed as a hologram in your brain. Are you with me still? And so then we tend to think neurologically within the framework of that circuitry from a past experience, and we tend to feel within the boundaries of those chemicals that have defined us emotionally. Are you with me still? And so then, the moment you have an experience that changes you, and you draw a conclusion about that experience, you just created a belief. And now, if you keep thinking and feeling within the same circuits of the past and the same emotions of the past, and how you think and how you feel creates a state of being, over time, you begin to condition the body to subconsciously become the mind, and that's called a belief. And all beliefs are subconscious states of being. And in order for you to change a belief or perception about yourself and your life, you're going to have to make a decision with such firm intention that the amplitude of that decision carries a level of energy that causes your body to respond to your mind. That the choice that you make becomes an experience that you never forget. And when you begin to do that, you are beginning to change your body with energy. And energy is the epiphenomenon of matter. Are you with me still? Yes. And you're going to have to come out of your resting state and have that moment define you. And that moment should become an experience that is a long-term memory. And the more emotional and higher the energy you feel, the more your brain is going to take a picture of what you're thinking about. And now the inner experience is going to begin to change your outer world, and that's called a change in perception. And reality, of course, is 11/10 perception. Are you with me still? So now, all of this is for you. And we are going to have a lot of fun in the process, because I don't want to do it if it isn't fun. So I want you to turn the person next to you and decide if you're in or you're out. I'm so humbled in the last year in what I've witnessed in this work and what people have proven to themselves is possible. That this past year was an amazing year for me and as well as my staff. And not only did we make scientific history many, many times, but the stories of change and healing and transformation and possibility have become more common for our students. And that when I look out at an audience and I see people inspired to want to learn and inspired to want to embark on these concepts and ideas and to actually do the work, it inspires me to continue to do the work. And that so much of our life is based on programming. And that programming is all based on believing that you're limited. And I have spent the last 3 years of my life working to deprogram that idea. That a program is something that we're not even conscious of. But I believe in possibility. And I believe in human potential. And I believe that common people can actually do the uncommon. And I know that when we begin to remove the masks and the layers and the emotions and habits that block the flow of divine in us, when we begin to do that work, that intelligence begins to come through a human being. And that expression of that intelligence is life. In whatever form it takes, they become more whole. They become more like that invisible intelligence. They become more willful. It has an amazing will. They become more mindful. It has an infinite mind. They become more conscious. It's a consciousness. They become more giving. It's a giver of life. They become more loving. It's a loving intelligence and intelligent love. Its nature becomes their nature. Its mind becomes their mind. And I'm honored and humbled to say that I've witnessed transformation in every skin color, in many, many cultures, and I can tell you it looks exactly the same. You want to see it? And that radiance that comes through a human being, to me, is worth all the lost luggage, all the missed flights, all the hard decisions we have to make, all of the people in our community that challenge us. It's all worth it to me. It's all worth it. And that I also know that the closer you move to that unified field, the less separation you will have. Which means then you won't see skin color, you won't see gender, you won't see culture, because you're not focusing on that. You're focusing on the divine within that person and all around them, because you've been focusing on the divine within you and all around you. And when you interact with that divine intelligence and it leaves an impression neurologically in your brain and genetically in your body, you are going to perceive a greater spectrum of reality. And we're going to begin to see what always existed, but we didn't have the circuitry to perceive it. And it's not going to come from something outside of us. It's going to come from the work we do inside of us. And the more you connect to that unified field, the more whole you should feel and less separation you should feel from everyone and everything. And the divine then, now, is wired neurologically in your brain. And so then, think about this. If you're feeling more whole and you're feeling more connected and you've made the journey, it means that you would have to go from a somebody to a nobody to become everybody. From someone to no one to become everyone. Isn't that the quantum field? From something to nothing to everything. From somewhere to nowhere to everywhere. And from some time to no time to every time. And that is the quantum field, that invisible field of information that exists beyond this space and time where there is no separation. And when you're connecting to that level of information, and there's less space between you and someone else next to you, or something, then there's less time for things to manifest in your life because you are closer to that unified field. Are you with me still? Yes. And here's the paradox, though. I've talked to enough people, and I've had this experience enough times. It's the most familiar, unfamiliar experience I've ever had. I don't know how else to say it any other way. We just did our teleclass this today, and I interviewed a physician that had a very profound experience. And she said, it was the most familiar, unfamiliar feeling. I know exactly what you're talking about. I connected to what was always within me. I've talked to enough people, and we'll talk about this at the advanced workshop. When they move from that somebody to the nexus, to the bridge where they're nobody to become everybody, they can be anybody. When they're at that place where they've gone from someone to no one to everyone, they can be anyone. When they go from something to nothing to everything, they can have anything. When they go from somewhere to nowhere to everywhere, they can be or live anywhere. And when they go from some time to no time to every time, and they can create any time or be in any time, guess what they choose? To be themselves. Because they feel so whole and so connected, they don't want to become anybody else, more of themselves. Are you with me still? Yes. So then, our purpose then is to make contact and to remove the things that stand in the way between you and I and the divine. And I'm telling you, it is an intelligent love, and it is loving intelligence. That's what it is. It's not in its nature to judge you and I. If it judged you, it would judge me or judge itself. It would create more separation, and it's not that at all. And I also know that in order for you to do the supernatural, it's going to take you feeling unnatural to begin with. It means then you're going to have to do things a little differently. And there's two ways we can go through this event. One way is that you can resist and fight, struggle, and drag around all your complaints and be frustrated and victimized and all that stuff, and we'll still get you. I'll work hard for it. Or you can just show up, leave your past at the back door, bring a fresh energy, and contribute to the energy in this room instead of draw from the energy in this room. And we will move very, very quickly. I was talking to one of my staff the other day. And of course, there's always challenges when we interact with the world. And to become supernatural, it means then you're going to have to do what is unnatural. That means you're going to have to give when everybody else is in lack and taking. It means you're going to have to love when everybody else is judging. It means you're going to have to show courage when everybody else is in fear. It means you're going to have to forgive when everybody else is holding a grudge. And you're going to have to surrender when everybody else is competing. And in the beginning, that feels unnatural. But if you keep doing it over and over again, sooner or later, you're going to become supernatural. And yes, it takes a little work, I know. But we are piercing through a veil of consciousness right now, and other people are following. Someone hears about someone or witnesses somebody who lowers their values from cancer. I've seen it. Person has the same exact value, same exact condition, they bring their values down. A person with a genetic disorder that medical science has had no solution for, 2.5 years to reverse that condition. And she was on it. You know what? Someone else had that genetic condition, and they healed themselves of it as well. The doctor said, "What in the world did you do?" "Well, I epigenetically signaled new genes in new ways. What do you think?" That's a good sign. Would you agree? Yes. So then, we have a stigma in our mind, embossed in there and programmed, that if you lead with too much passion in your life, you're going to get it. Whether you're Martin Luther King, William Wallace, Mahatma Gandhi, Joan of Arc, John Lennon, Abraham Lincoln, you step outside a convention, you risk your life. But you know, we have a fear of being persecuted if we lead. And this is a time in history, truly, a true time in history, where we have to begin to no longer die for the truth, but live for the truth. But you know, my favorite law in biology is emergence. You ever see a group of fish that are in a school that all turn at the same time? Or a flock of birds, you know, you go to Austin and you see those bats take off out of the bridge. I stood there. They're all in coherence. They're all moving as one mind. And if you study that phenomenon in biology, you would think that there's a leader that everybody else is following. That's a top-down phenomenon. But in fact, if you know it, it's a bottom-up phenomenon. It's one mind. Everybody's leading at the same time. So then, if you're overcoming your anger, aggression, and judgment, and the person next to you is overcoming their fear and anxiety and worry, and we're doing the work, and all of a sudden we start showing up in a different energy, a different state, and it is unnatural in the beginning. That sooner or later, if everybody's leading, you just can't take everybody out now, can you? And we are the very people that we've been waiting for. And we are here to literally transform the world in consciousness. And I now know that if I have 50 people sitting in the front of the room or 70 people sitting in the front of the room wearing a heart rate monitor, and I have 600 people in the rest of the room raising their energy and laying the intent on that frequency that the people in the front of the room receive this energy and it enrich their lives. How is it that 90% of them all go into heart coherence at the exact same time, in the exact same day, in the exact same meditation? You see, we are bound by an invisible field of energy, and that connection is called love. So then here's my question. How much of your creative energy is tied up in guilt? How much of your creative energy is tied up in shame? How much of your creative energy is tied up in insecurity of what other people think of you? How much of your creative energy is tied up in control? Because that's available energy that you can use to design a new destiny. And when that energy moves, the first place it moves is right here. And all of a sudden, you begin to connect to something greater. And so, we will develop concepts and ideas this weekend. Bring your greatest level of energy in sincerity and in freedom and in joy. Of course, I'm going to push you past you where you normally go. And of course, you may be a little uncomfortable, but you got to make a choice. You got to believe that there's something else awaiting you, and you got to keep going. And when you cross that river to the other side, there are new experiences that await you. And as I told a friend of mine whose life fell apart because of doing this work, and a lot of people would say, "Oh my God." But I said to him, you know what? That energy that you're living at is no longer connected to your past. You're in a different vibration. You belong to the future. And you know what? New wife, new job, better job. Got fired as the vice president of a university. Got fired. Out of nowhere. No reason. And I said, don't you get emotional. Don't take it personal. When you can't figure it out, it's bigger than you. Just get out of the way. Keep creating. 2 weeks later, he leaves the place, goes to another place, meets a woman, falls in love with her. They get married. He gets a job at another university better than the other one. The other university, a year later, calls him and asks him to be the president of the university, the one that fired him. And I said to him, the unknown has never let me down. Ever let me down. It's never let me down. And so many of us are waiting for someone else to do it. You know what I'm talking about, yes? And this is the dark night of the soul, you know, when you realize that nobody understands you but you. When you realize that when you ask a person a question and they give you their truth based on their experience, it's not what you're looking for. Nobody has the answers to you but you. And all of a sudden now you begin the work. It's what it takes. It's what it takes. So then, when that begins to happen, and we begin to wake up to the fact that there's more, and you're stepping outside of that familiar aspect of your life into the unknown, and you're trusting in that unknown, you would have to agree with me then that when you begin to step out into the unknown and you're trusting in a future that doesn't exist for you, the question is, can you believe in a future that you can't see or experience with your senses yet, but you've thought about enough times in your mind that your brain is literally changed to look like the experience has already occurred? You're going to learn how possible that is. And can you fall in love with the future potential that already exists in the quantum field? And how many potentials exist there? And can you begin to emotionally embrace that future before it's made manifest to such a degree that your body, as the unconscious mind, is beginning to believe it's living in that future reality in the present moment, and you're signaling new genes and new ways to change your body to look like the experience has already occurred? Yes. So then, if there's physical evidence in your brain and body to look like the experience has already occurred, it's in your brain and body, then the event has already occurred. You can relax because the event is going to find you. And it will come in a way that you least expect. That is the unknown. And you will be surprised because that's the gift from the divine. And you will experience an elevated emotion like joy and wonder and awe and inspiration and love for life. And that energy is going to inspire you to create again and again and again. And enough people are now doing it that I now know that it's becoming a law. It's becoming possible. And so I want to invite you this weekend to step into the unknown with me. I want you to come with sincerity and joy and freedom. And let's begin this journey. The path has already been carved. All we have to do is step into it. And so we will start tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. That's what's so late. At 9 a.m. And we will have a wonderful, wonderful day. How does that sound? Now, last point. I would love for as many of you to come to the advanced workshop as possible because I'm so excited about some of the things that are occurring there. And if you can't make this advanced workshop, by all means, make time in your schedule to come to an advanced workshop because I'm telling you, the magic is happening every single day. I'll see you tomorrow.